This is Hidden Killers Year in Review, a look back at the biggest stories of 2025. This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
Have you seen it yet? Murdaugh, Death in the Family on Hulu, the big dramatized dive into murder, money, and the fall of a Southern dynasty. I'm curious to get your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube, so please give me your thoughts. My initial thoughts as we go into this, just like literally on the surface, because this is literally a surface observation. The title poster back here, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see it. When I first saw this, and I can't unsee this now, my observation, they look like corpses. They do. The makeup is so heavy and so shitty. But I think that was intentional. I'm not trying to insult the filmmakers, because that's not my intention. I feel like this is kind of how the dramatization might have been intended. But it makes it even more macabre than already. I mean, seriously, when you look at this, I mean, Murdaugh looks dead, and obviously he's the one that's alive, but they have a look about them in the promo pieces, and I don't know if it's because these are AI'd. I don't know if they are AI'd or if they're just the way they filtered the shots or the makeup, but they look like corpses. If that's your goal, bravo. It makes it creepy. It makes it very creepy. So how creepy is the actual dramatized series on Hulu itself? Well, again, I'm going to let you guys give me your thoughts in the comment section. We'll go over kind of what we've understood now thus far, fact versus fiction. 8 episodes, big cast, built-in audience, already sick to death, the headlines, but still hooked on the wreckage. Because if the truth hadn't been so surreal, so tangled in privilege and corruption and murder, none of this would be on your screen in the first place. But the big question is, how close does the series get to the real story? Not the headlines, not the gloss, the actual horror show that unfolded behind the doors of Alex Murdaugh's home and his law offices bearing his name. Does the show tell the truth? Or is it dressed up Southern crime fantasy? Spoiler, it's a little of both. And the truth is uglier than what even Hulu could film, quite honestly. This is one of those stories where I think we even said this like while the trial was going on. If you tried to script this, people would go, it's a bit much. Tone it back. We open the same place the series does, that 911 call. June 7th, 2021. Alex Murdaugh is on the phone telling dispatchers that his wife Maggie and his son Paul have been shot near the kennels of their Moselle property in Colleton County, South Carolina. He sounds panicked, desperate. The series captures it well. I mean, really, he does. He does hit it well. It had to, because it's a turning point. That's the moment everything comes crashing down. And for the first time, the public gets a look behind the facade of one of the most powerful families in the Lowcountry. But in real life, that moment wasn't just a family tragedy. It was the end of a long con, the final act in a decades-long performance where Alex Murdaugh wasn't just a husband or a father or a lawyer. He was an illusion, an operator. And he's finally out of rope. The Hulu series wants you to understand the emotional stakes. It puts Maggie's fear and Paul's recklessness on display. It paints a picture of a family unraveling. But to truly get the scale of the story, you have to understand that the murders weren't the beginning. They were the cover-up. Let's back up. Alex Murdaugh had been stealing for years. Not pocket change, not skimming billable hours. Millions from his own law firm, from clients who trusted him with settlements meant to keep them afloat after catastrophic injuries or the loss of a loved one. If you want to know more about that, look at the Russell Laffitte trial, which literally just wrapped up. There's another piece on that that's dropping right around the same time this one is, that goes into the details of that, the man, the financial man behind the Murdaugh. that's a story unto itself. So if you're just kind of, I finally want to dig into this Murdaugh thing, there's a lot of pieces to fully grasp it. So trust me on that. You want to get the other angle on it. So this is some subtle bookkeeping shuffle. He created fake bank accounts, fake signatures, diverted checks into accounts with names that looked legitimate but weren't, and all with the help of Russell Laffitte of Palmetto State Bank. He took money from a man left paralyzed after a crash, from children who lost a parent, from his own housekeeper's sons after she died on his property, in a death that still remains a little bit sus. And no one said a word. Not for years. Because in that part of South Carolina, the Murdaugh name still meant protection. So when the Hulu series touches on his financial crimes, it's not just a subplot, it's the engine behind the entire case. In the real world, prosecutors laid it out clearly. Alex killed Maggie and Paul to buy himself time, to draw attention away from his financial exposure, to derail the lawsuits, delay the audits, create chaos so no one would notice the books didn't balance. And chaos he created. Let's talk about Gloria Satterfield. She wasn't just the help. She was a fixture in the Murdaugh home. And in 2018, she died after an alleged fall at the Moselle house. The exact circumstances, I'm sorry, I'm going through a cold and allergies, and my dictation is not the greatest today. The exact circumstances, still a little murky. But here's what is documented. Alec told her sons he was going to help them file a wrongful death claim, get the insurance money they deserved. He encouraged them to sue him. That sounds crazy. It's not. It happens a lot. If you know the insurance company is going to be good for it, well, and you truly want what's right for these people who may be hesitant to sue you because there is or had been a relatively positive relationship there between mom, who's now dead, who died on your staircase, and the kids. On the surface, to anyone on the outside, who these kids, adult kids, may say, Alex said I should do this to get the money. Well, look at him. Look at him being the big man. He wants to help you. It looks lovely on the surface. Help you get the money you are entitled to from this accident claim. We're going to get you. We're going to do everything we can. Can't bring mom back, but we're going to financially get you taken care of so that can be one less thing you have to worry about. The money, it never came because Alec took it. He worked with attorneys to file the claim, settled it for over $4 million, and pocketed it, lied about it, hid it, and then left Gloria's sons with nothing outside investigations, forced it all back into the light. And finally, problem there. Now, the series includes Gloria. Gloria gives her story a beat, but what it can't capture is the sheer cruelty of it. This wasn't just a financial crime. This was a man turning someone's death into a personal payday. And he did it without blinking. And these were people he knew, supposedly loved, cared about. Then we get to the boat crash. February 24th of 2019. Paul Murdaugh, drunk, allegedly piloting the family's boat with friends aboard, slams into a bridge piling near Paris Island. Mallory Beach is only 19. Thrown from the boat, her body is found days later. Paul's charged with felony boating under the influence, and that case becomes a ticking time bomb for Alex, one that threatens to expose everything. Why? Because the lawsuit tied to Mallory's death was targeting Alex's finances, his assets, his insurance. And once discovery started, once the lawyers began asking questions, that's when the truth about the money started to slip out. So when the series treats the boat crash as a major turning point, it's not exaggerating. That crash was the beginning of the end. Paul's legal trouble wasn't just a PR nightmare. It was a direct threat to Alex's criminal empire. And here's where it gets darker, because The night Maggie and Paul were murdered, Maggie had reportedly been lured to Moselle under false pretenses. She didn't want to go. Alex's father was dying, and Alec told her to come see him. But it was a setup. Prosecutors said it was all part of the plan. Isolate her, get her to the property, eliminate the two people who threatened Alex's future. And they didn't just die, they were executed. Paul shot in the chest and head with a shotgun. Maggie, just yards away, gunned down with a rifle. 2 weapons, 2 separate killings, premeditated, intentional. What does Alex do next? He lies, tells investigators he was never at the kennels that night, and he didn't hear the shots, and that he was visiting his mother. But then they find the video, a cell phone video taken by Paul minutes before the murders. He's filming a dog in the background. Alex's voice, clear as day, right there, in the scene, right before the trigger's pulled, basically. That video blew the entire case wide open. The Hulu series gets that part right. Shows the unraveling, the cell phone data, the exposure. But again, the real-life weight of that moment is so much heavier because it's not just a contradiction. It's proof that Alec was willing to look his son in the eye and kill him anyway. The murder trial was swift. 6 weeks of testimony, dozens of witnesses, and a jury that did not hesitate. Less than 3 hours of deliberation, guilty in all counts, 2 consecutive life sentences, no possibility of parole. And still, Alec kept lying, kept insisting he didn't do it, kept playing the same games he always had, manipulating, redirecting, feigning innocence, even as the mountain of evidence crushed him. And if the story stopped there, you might just say justice was done. But it did. Because after the murder trial, more charges kept coming. Federal indictments, state-level guilty pleas, sentences for fraud, conspiracy, bank fraud, wire fraud. He pled guilty to 22 counts in federal court, got 40 years for that alone. Add to that the 27 years he got from the state for financial crimes. And remember, those are in addition to the life sentences. So no, this wasn't just a man who snapped. This was a man who built a life on exploitation, on theft, on the assumption that the system would always protect him. For a long time, it did. Let's talk about that because the Hulu series tries to show you the power the Murdaugh name carried. But it's hard to grasp unless you've seen it up close. This was a family that ran the local solicitor's office for nearly a century. They were the law. The prosecutors, the insiders, judges, lawyers, law enforcement, all connected. And that created a bubble where Alex could do almost anything. He could forge signatures on insurance documents, settle cases, and skim off the top, funnel money through accounts no one questioned, and every time someone got close, he had an answer, a delay, a distraction. And it worked until it didn't. The downfall came not because the system caught him. It came because he couldn't outrun the consequences anymore. Because when people started dying, the walls finally started closing in. And maybe the darkest part, he thought he could still get away with it. Even after the murders, even after the staged roadside shooting. Yes, that happened too, just months after killing his wife and son. Alex tried to fake his own murder, called 911, claimed he was shot while changing a tire, said it was a random act of violence. In reality, it was a failed suicide for hire. He wanted his surviving son, Buster, to get the life insurance payout, except it backfired, literally. The shooter, Curtis Eddie Smith, botched the job. Alex lived, and the lie unraveled again. And here's the part the Hulu series barely touches, the ripple effect. The people left behind, the victims who never saw their settlements, the law firm partners who turned a blind eye, the investigators who overlooked red flags, the judges and attorneys who gave Alec the benefit of the doubt over and over again. This wasn't just one bad man. This was a culture of silence, of deference, of privilege, so deeply rooted that it took murder to finally break through. So does Murdaugh death in the family get it right? Mostly. It hits the big beats. The murders, the fraud, the trial. It shows you a man crumbling under pressure, but it can't show you everything. It can't show you the systematic rot, the complicity, the arrogance, the lives destroyed along the way. Maybe it's not supposed to. Maybe it's just meant to be entertainment. But if you're watching this show and thinking you've seen the whole picture, you haven't. You've seen the headlines. What you haven't seen is the fallout, the client still trying to rebuild, the families left behind, the names on the checks that bounced, the legacy of a man who thought he could do anything and almost did. So watch the show. It's interesting. But when it's over, remember, the credits might roll, but the story is not finished. Because the damage this man did, it is still echoing. And justice, real justice, it doesn't end with a verdict. It ends when we stop letting people like Alex Murdaugh get this far in the first place. Give me your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube. If you're not already there, search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. You will find us there. You make that same search wherever you're getting podcasts as well. And be sure to press subscribe. We do greatly appreciate you following and letting us know your thoughts and hitting subscribe. I'm Tony Brueski. I'm going to go take some cold medicine. We'll talk again. Real.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast. Is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
It is amazing how much power can rot a family from the inside out before anyone finally notices the smell. The Murdaugh name used to mean something down in the South Carolina Lowcountry for 100 years. They ran that corner of South Carolina like a private fiefdom. They didn't just work in the justice system. They were the justice system. And in light of this new movie that has come out, series on Hulu, Murdaugh, Death in the Family, if you haven't been following along with this case and this is new to you, welcome, and welcome to one of the craziest stories you're ever going to dive into. Let me welcome you. We have tons of content about this, including a podcast with literally, I think, damn near 1,000 episodes on it. It's called The Trial of Alex Murdaugh. Big red graphic. You can find it wherever you get podcasts if you want to go back and relive the magic from the beginning. And plenty of content right here on this channel, too. So, welcome. Let's talk about this case. One of the many facets of it. If you're wondering about the Mallory Beach situation, that sounds really downplaying. I don't mean to sound like that. You know what I mean? We're going to dive into it. You're going to understand this piece of the wheel. Because the Murdaughs really are. It's like the Wheel of Fortune. All the different tiles, the dollar amounts on, that's just different pieces of it. And this is just another one of those. And it's not to downplay her life, but I'm saying it's just one piece of the chaos wheel. Because there's so much that makes up the Murdaughs. So, give me your thoughts as we go along in the comments. So, the Murdaughs, like I was saying, for 100 years, ran that part of South Carolina like a private fiefdom. They didn't just work in the justice system, they were the justice system. 3 generations of solicitors, the family law firm wrapped around the courthouse like ivy, judges and cops and clerks who knew better than to cross them. You didn't win cases against the Murdaughs. You got permission to lose gracefully. Until one night in February of 2019, when the river finally took the life of the Murdaughs. Or took a life, rather, that the Murdaughs couldn't buy back. Yeah. Sucks when that happens, doesn't it? When your world comes shattering down because one of your spawns is just as irresponsible as you, with no prefrontal cortex functioning. Yeah. Comes back to bite you, doesn't it? It was late after 2 in the morning when Paul Murdaugh, 19 years old at the time, too drunk to stand straight, climbed behind the wheel of his father's boat. 6 kids on board, a few of them begging him not to drive. He laughed it off. He said it's his boat. He'd been drinking all night, using his brother's ID to buy liquor and beer, stopping at bars along the river, in the boat. Witnesses said he was angry, belligerent, daring anyone to take the wheel from him. Nobody could talk him down. Moments later, the boat hit a piling near Parris Island so hard it threw people into the cold black water like rag dolls. When the chaos stopped, one name echoed through the dark: Mallory. Mallory Beach was missing. 19 years old. Beautiful, kind, the kind of girl who made people feel safe. And now, she was gone. Thanks to a Murdaugh. The others crawled onto the riverbank, bloodied, screaming. They called 911. You can hear it in the recording. Panic, confusion, disbelief. They knew what had happened. They knew Paul was drunk. They knew this never should have happened. And that's where the story should have been. This story should have just been about grief and accountability. But it's not, because this was a Murdaugh crash. And when the Murdaughs are involved, the rules change. At least in Alex clan. From the minute the phone started ringing, the machine kicked into gear. Alex Murdaugh, Paul's father, shows up at Beaufort Memorial Hospital, not as a concerned parent, but as a man on a mission. You'll love this. Witnesses said he moved through the hallways like he owned them. He wasn't there to comfort anyone. He was there to control the story. He started slipping into rooms where the other injured teens were being treated. Kids who were still dazed, bleeding, and traumatized. Nurses tried to stop him. One told security to keep him out, and he ignored him. According to later depositions, Alex went straight to Connor Cook, one of Paul's closest friends, and told him to keep his mouth shut, allegedly. Told him not to say who was driving. Told him he'd take care of it. While flashing a badge around, too, by the way. All official looking. It's a Murdaugh way. Imagine that. You're 19, confused, terrified. And the most powerful man in your county is standing over you, telling you, I got this. It's not protection, that's manipulation. He even told Connor which lawyer to hire. Of course he did. A family friend who'd done business with the Murdaugh firm for years. Wrapped this boy up in the same web. Keep that circle tight. Meanwhile, Alec is making calls. People overheard him on the phone saying, she's gone, don't worry. Cold, clinical, not the father, grieving a tragedy. A man already spinning the next move. And his son, Paul, was still drunk and belligerent. Hospital records show his blood alcohol content at 0.286, 3 times the legal limit. His injuries were consistent with being behind the wheel, and he reeked of booze. He was combative with nurses, but somehow law enforcement didn't give him a sobriety test. Why would you do that? Well, you're in the low country. We're the Murdaughs. Alcohol don't affect us. It only affects the other people that get in the way of it and us. Like, that should have been a line in the movie. Totally fabricated, totally made up. But it seems like that could have been. I mean, think about this. 6 teenagers in a mangled boat, 1 girl missing, everyone pointing at Paul, and the cops just don't test him. They draw blood for the hospital, sure, but they don't treat it as evidence. It's not oversight, that's protection. Didn't stop there. Within hours, the story started to shift. Someone was whispering that maybe Connor was the one driving, maybe Paul wasn't responsible, maybe no one really knew what happened. That wasn't confusion, that was strategy. The Murdaughs had been playing this game for decades. Controlled the first story, and every story after that bends to it. Alex and his father, Randolph, and former solicitor were both working phones that night. Randolph allegedly told people Paul and Connor was driving. And once that seed was planted, the machine did what it does best: create fog. Investigators later admitted that 2 deputies at the scene had ties to the Murdaugh law firm. Think about the odds of that. In a rural county, 2 responding officers just happen to have financial or family connections to the most powerful legal family in the region. Huh. You think that didn't color how the reports were written? One investigator was even pulled off the case after it came out that his wife worked for the Murdaugh firm, and no one told the victim's family about that conflict until lawyers dragged it into the light months later. So while Mallory's family was searching the river for their daughter's body, the Murdaughs were searching for a way to make sure the blame landed anywhere but at their own doorstep. When Mallory's body was finally found 8 days later, the Murdaughs didn't offer remorse, they offered spin. Paul was charged with boating under the influence, causing death, but he walked free. Smiling in his booking photo, bond posted before the ink was dry. The arrogance was staggering. The family acted like this was a misunderstanding, an inconvenience, not someone's daughter's death. At the hospital, nurses and security guards later testified they'd never seen anything like it. Alex Murdaugh in and out of rooms, telling kids what to say, telling parents which lawyers to hire, dropping his name like a weapon. That is not grief, that is control. That's narcissism in motion. When tragedy becomes a stage and the only thing that matters is maintaining the illusion of power. The cover-up didn't even need to be sophisticated. The family's influence was so deep that people hesitated to challenge them. The sheriff's deputies knew who signed their paychecks. The prosecutors knew who built the courthouse. The judges knew who helped them get elected. In that part of South Carolina, the Murdaughs weren't just rich, they were royalty. So the system did what it always did. It bent. It took civil lawsuits and public outrage to drag the truth into the daylight. Mallory's family sued Alec, Buster, and the convenience store that sold the alcohol. Through discovery, the whole rotten network started to surface. Conflicts of interest, missing reports, destroyed evidence, officers with family connections. The more the Beach family pushed, the more cracks appeared in the Murdaugh armor. Connor Cook eventually came forward and said he'd lied to investigators at first because he was scared. He said he'd been told to stay quiet, to say he didn't know who was driving. He said he'd seen what happened to people who crossed the Murdaughs. He called it what it was, fear. That one word explains everything. The Murdaughs built a culture of fear. They didn't have to threaten anyone directly. The name did its work for them. Everyone in Hampton County knows the score. Cross them, and your life gets harder. Your case disappears. Your job gets shaky. Your tires maybe go flat, allegedly. Or worse. So people played along, and Mallory's family got stonewalled at every turn. The evidence against Paul was overwhelming. But the investigation dragged for months. When charges finally came, the family acted insulted, like the system had turned on them. They didn't see accountability as justice, they saw it as betrayal. That's the narcissism at the center of it all. It's not just arrogance, it's the belief that rules are for other people. The consequences are optional, and reputation matters more than human life. Alex Murdaugh spent his whole career manipulating that belief system. He didn't see institutions as sacred. He saw them as tools. He'd been the perpetrator for so long, he thought he could finesse this like every other mess he'd ever cleaned up. But this time, the stain didn't wash out because the Beach family refused to back down. They wanted accountability, not a settlement, not silence. They wanted truth. And chasing it, they exposed more than just the lies about the boat crash. They cracked open the vault. Once lawyers started digging into Alex's finances through discovery, everything started to unravel. The missing settlement money, the embezzled funds, the fake clients, the secret loans, the insurance scams. It all started with the boat. When Paul and Maggie were murdered in 2021, people asked why? Why now? Why them? But the timing wasn't random. The walls were closing in. The boat crash lawsuit was about to force Alec to open his books. He couldn't control it anymore. The old tricks weren't working. The cover-ups had stopped covering. The boat crash didn't just expose one family's corruption. It showed how generations of unchecked power breed rot, how entitlement manipulates or mutates into delusion, how a man like Alex Murdaugh could stand in a hospital full of bleeding kids and think, how do I spin this? Instead of, how do I make this right? And make no mistake, this wasn't a one-time moral failure. It was a logical conclusion of a family that had lived too long without boundaries. The Murdaughs believed their own mythology. They thought the law was elastic. They thought the truth was negotiable. They thought they could control everything. And for a long time, they did. Until a 19-year-old died on a cold river, and her parents refused to be intimidated. Years later, as Alex sits behind bars for the murders of his wife and son, spoiler alert, the threads all lead back to that night. The arrogance, the manipulation, the lies. It all started when the mask slipped, when the old low country empire realized it couldn't bend gravity forever. Mallory Beach's death wasn't just an accident. It was the moment the Murdaugh's illusion shattered. It was the night people stopped whispering and started asking questions. Why did law enforcement treat this family differently? Why did evidence disappear? And why did a drunk 19-year-old get more defense than a dead girl? Every question peeled away another layer of rot. And by the time the world learned about the millions Alec had stolen from clients, the house of cards was already collapsing. The Murdaughs built their empire on privilege, fear, and a myth of integrity. But when reality showed up in a mangled boat, they did what narcissists always do. They lied. They deflected, and they blamed everyone else. Because in the end, that's what narcissism really is. The inability to see anyone else's pain as real. For them, Mallory wasn't a person. She was a problem to solve, a headline to minimize, a threat to their image. But her name endured longer than their power did. Today, the Murdaugh dynasty is dust. The courthouse plaques are tarnished. The law firm has been renamed. The patriarch is a convict. The legacy is a cautionary tale. And every time someone tells a story of what happened that night on the river, the arrogance, the lies, the cruelty, it chips away at the last piece of that old corrupt empire. Mallory's name still matters. The truth still matters. And every lie the Murdaughs told to protect themselves only made the truth louder. Because power can hide the truth for a while, but not forever. And when it finally surfaces, it drags the monsters into the light, kicking, screaming, and still pretending they're the victims. That's the Murdaugh story in one sentence. And that's why Mallory Beach will be remembered long after they're forgotten. Give me your thoughts in the comments section on YouTube. If you're not there, search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. You'll find us there, and you'll also find us wherever you get podcasts. So search there. Search everywhere. Podcast for you. YouTube for you. Content for everyone. Or something like that. Anyway, please do press subscribe. And also, please comment. Like I said, I'd love to get your thoughts on this story. All right, until next time, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.